Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, and I hope you like free throws because this is your Thunder-Mavericks series preview for the Western Conference semifinals. We'll give you best bets for the series, break it all down in detail, give you the edges that you need to know as well as prop edges. And to do that, I've got NBA futures analyst Brandon Anderson, the best in the business, the king of ROI, here to do that with me. I want to let you know that everything we talk about can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. Brandon's got series previews up out the wazoo. I'm reacting to all the news around the association. Probably going to write on, some interesting comments from Pat Riley at media availability for the Heat today, because I'll just look. Maybe they get this all under control and everyone just kind of finds an agreement that they like. But I'll just tell you right now, I think there's a storm on the horizon for your Miami Heat. And we'll talk about that in the Action Network app. But we're going to talk about best bets. Also, by the way, we've got all sorts of shows coming up. Nothing But Bet Tuesday in the afternoon, Action Island Wednesday, and you can find both those shows at youtube.com/The Action Network. You're gonna find stuff you want to watch there. Don't lie. We let us not lie to each other, listener. We both know that you go to YouTube or the Grams and flip through the videos. Just go to youtube.com/The Action Network. You'll find stuff. You're gonna be like, ooh. You'll find stuff. Come on, you know you want to. All right, Brandon, the series is going to be hilarious. It's going to be really great. It's going to be narrative filled. It's going to take years off everyone's lives. What's your best bet for Oklahoma City versus the Dallas Mavericks? Oh, real quick, I will give the series price over at BetMGM. Thunder minus 120 on the series spread on the series line, basic. Mavs plus 100. You could shop around. So depending on where you go, you can find Mavs minus 105, Thunder minus 115. You can get Mavs at this plus number here at BetMGM. You can. There is a wide discrepancy, though I will say that I imagine between now and when the Mavericks and Thunder tip off game one, I do expect more to come in on the Thunder as the public keeps or on the Dallas Mavericks as the public keeps hitting Dallas. The series spread line, OKC minus 1.5 is plus 175. Dallas plus 1.5 minus 210, or Oklahoma City plus 1.5 is minus 190. Just to get it to a game 7, if you're the Thunder, is minus 190. Dallas minus 1.5, Dallas and 6 or less is plus 155. What's your best bet for Thunder Mavs?
Yeah, I basically agree with the books on this. I think this is a really tough series. I think it is a long series, as those series spreads you just said are priced. And I wanted to go with an over 5.5 games. That's a minus 180, not my style. So I'm going to take the team in a long series that I think is the better team. Give me the Thunder in 6 or 7. Split the bet in half. Thunder in 6 plus 650. Thunder in 7 plus 440. Combined, it's a plus 213. Really like a half unit, so probably like a quarter on each. This is the series I will be betting least heavily of the 4. I think it's a real toss-up, and I'm excited to talk about it.
I'm grateful that you're on Thunder, because I was like, he's going to be on Mavericks, and I'm going to be on Thunder, and he's going to win, and I'm going to feel stupid, and I'm going to have all these reasons why it was stupid. It's not going to change it. So at least now I can feel like we're at least,
going down.
We're going to lose together, and that's nice. I'm on Thunder minus 120 on the base series price. I don't bet these a lot. I like the series spread lines. I like playing the games and who's going to win how many, and fading the idea that one team is heavily going to wipe it out or not, and how often teams just hang around in series. It's funny because a good solid win in the second round is like, oh, you won 4-2. And yet for some reason, the books come out, it's like the massive favorites, minus 2.5. Although the books are killing us on those in these playoffs with where these are priced. This is look, this one is the one that you can find value on to bet your opinion.
Yep.
And there's a reason for that, which is we don't know. There's no real strong element. There's not a huge market bias that's going to bend this one way or the other, like there is with the Knicks. You mentioned kind of how close this is. When I started making notes on this series, the first thing that I typed in all caps was shot variance.
Yep.
To me, this series is going to be so much about shot variance, because these are two teams that have their success is predicated very much on make miss. And there will be a pushback on that because Dallas's defense, but Dallas's defense has been they've won because opponents have missed shots. and not like heavily contested, like they've just missed a lot of shots. If that changes, they're screwed. If it holds, they're in good position here. Let's talk when the Thunder are on offense.
Wait, let me comment on that real quick, because I think the shot variance thing, it's easy to interpret that as, okay, so these teams are close, the series is close, we're going to get coin flip games, here we go, game 7, we're going all the way. Not necessarily. Like, coin flips can flip heads 4 times in a row sometimes too. Look at the Knicks-Sixers series we just got. We had close games every single game, and really the series should have ended in 5. Remember, the Knicks gave that one away, or else it's over in 5, even though it was kind of like what we're saying about this series, a coin flippy sort of series where every game could go each way. So that to say, you and I are both not doing this, but as a bettor, if you feel like you have a good read, if you feel really strongly about one of these teams, because it's priced so evenly, you can actually be aggressive and bet like a Thunder in 5 or a Mavs in 5. You can play a number to your favor and bet against the idea that this is a long, close series. I'm not, but I think that is a very possible thing. Like, just because I think the teams are even doesn't mean it actually plays out that way. Shot variance can mean maybe we get a bunch of close games. Maybe we don't. Maybe we get a bunch of 25-point games and one team just like hit a barrage of threes each way. So yeah, as a bettor, if you have a read, the closeness of the pricing here is giving you an opportunity. It's not one either you or I are taking right now, but it may be one that we'd come back to later in the series.
I think the market on this is so interesting because the public is very clearly on Dallas. Like, it just very clearly, this moved pretty early. I don't know that the sharps are necessarily on that. There's been sharp action on the Thunder in game 1. And if there's been sharp action on Thunder in game 1, that doesn't mean that they're not on Dallas for the series. But it's interesting. And from the book's perspective, so much of it is just like a power rating, right? It's built off of the power rating.
Yeah.
And they're in a very advantageous position here because they get to basically set a line that is built off of like, look, every single metric that we use to evaluate team strength says that the Thunder are significantly better than everybody but Minnesota. Like, I'll just tell you, like, that's what it's going to, even Denver. They won't price it if Denver gets to the conference finals that way, because they get to cheat even more then. But like, their power rating for Oklahoma City is going to be through the roof. Like, OKC was the second best team in the NBA this season. Like, if we're evaluating this on like just on the resume, if we take the age and the jerseys off,
yep,
OKC was the second best team in the NBA, and they were the best team in the West. And I think they were in the best team in the West by like a couple points on the spread line on power rating. But the perception is, come on, these are like, I don't even know these guys. Like, most of America, I do, but like most of the betting public is like, who the hell is Isaiah Joe? They have Andrew Wiggins? No, not that one. Nope, close, but no. Like, come on. They have some number of Jay Williams. I don't know how many. And on the other side, it's like, oh man, Luka. Oh, Luka beat the Clippers again. You know, that Luka Doncic just has the Clippers number. And so there's like a wide perception here. They get to price this as a very close series. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be priced as a close series. I don't think all those perceptions are wrong. But it's like really fascinating what the price that they're able to get away with for what is at its core a 1-5 matchup between a dominant team and a team that was like pretty good and then got really good after the All-Star break.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I thought the same way you did. And like, look, we know I'm an on-paper guy. On paper, the Thunder are a clear tier ahead of the Mavericks, and maybe even more than one tier. Like, these are teams that should not be priced evenly. I believe that about these teams. I expected to feel, when I saw this come out as a coin flip series, like, oh, easy choice. I guess I'm a Thunder on this one. The problem is, once we get into the matchup stuff now, I like a lot of the matchup edges for Dallas. And even though I think OKC is the better team, it's a matchups game. It's an X's and O's game. And I like some of the advantages Dallas has. I still like OKC as the better team. They still have home court and a few other advantages that I end up trending in their direction. But I think that Dallas, some of the matchup stuff closes the tier gap in some ways that I wasn't really necessarily expecting before digging into it.
Well, let's talk about those. instead of just doing the baseline Thunder on offense, Mavs on offense stuff, we'll get to those. But let's actually kind of like dive into that. I want to explore that a little bit more. Let's start with that. Like, let's start with, okay, we've acknowledged that the Thunder on paper are the better team, that probably this price doesn't reflect the gap between the two teams from a power rating perspective, right?
Yeah, definitely it does not reflect the gap.
Right. But like you mentioned, there are matchup stuff that you really like here. Yeah. So let's kind of get into those, because I got a lot of stuff for OKC I like. So let's start with that. What on the Mavericks side do you think of the edges?
So it's more things that make me a little less high on OKC, which effectively comes out the same way. So the Thunder rely heavily on points off of turnovers. They are number one in the NBA in points off turnovers, over 20 points a game that come that way. Defense is really good. We know that. They force a lot of turnovers. The Mavericks turned over fourth least in the NBA. So that to me, that's always like, that's the first red flag. Okay, you might not get some of those really easy buckets. So live ball steals and points off turnovers, those are literally the most efficient points you can get in the NBA. You can't do anything better than that. So less of those, okay, that closes the gap a little bit. You mentioned free throws at the top. I think the free throw advantage goes Dallas's way here. Dallas defensively does not foul very much. Oklahoma City fouls a lot, actually, because they play so aggressively. Dallas, for the season, was only around league average at getting to the free throw line. Not really what you'd think, not what I would have thought, because you got Luka and you got Kyrie. They're around league average, but in the regular season, Dallas, they played 4 games. One of them was game 82. So just know that when I talk about season series, that was the most shambolic game on the schedule. I am just pretending that game never happened when I talk about this. Like, Dallas tried to lose. We all acknowledge it. In the other 3 games, Dallas got to the line 33, 36, and 26 times against the Thunder. So I think that the free throw advantage typically goes Oklahoma City's way. I don't know that the free throw, the whistle, I'd like to hear from you on like the whistle on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the second half of the season. But the way that this series has been officiated, Dallas is actually winning the free throw battle, which is flipped from what OKC usually does. So that's another, not just an advantage muted that Oklahoma City has, but actually taken away for Dallas. And another one, we know Oklahoma City is not a good rebounding team. We know this. Dallas is also not a great rebounding team. So my first thought was, all right, well, here's a deficiency for both teams. I guess it's nothing. It's not what it looked like in the regular season matchups. In the regular season matchups, Dallas pounded OKC on the offensive glass. And we'll come back to this. My favorite bet in the series actually has to do with that. I think both Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively can have really big series rebounding and get some of those extra chances. So those are all math advantages. Those are all ways that, hey, your easiest points, OKC, you might not get those. And Dallas, you might get more easy points. Some of those free throws, some of those offensive rebounds and second chances, those are the easy points. So to me, those are the gaps. That's where the gap closes significantly, some of those margins.
So the free throw stuff is really interesting here. After the league stopped calling fouls, is what we'll say. After the league stopped calling fouls, Dallas, I think, benefited the most of any defense in the NBA. It wasn't that they were like a terrible they didn't allow this huge free throw rate. But what happened was it took a weakness of theirs, which is point of attack, and it made it into a strength where you can just play physical and be able to contain. And they play about as physical as anybody in the league outside of like Minnesota. I will say this, their technique is a lot more sloppy than Minnesota's. Yeah. Like Minnesota defends you capably without fouling. Dallas just fouls you and gets away with it. And that's not my words. Those are the words of Kirk Henderson, who runs MavsMoneyball.com, who's a good friend of mine, who that's how he has described this team and what they've been doing defensively. But what's interesting is that Shai had a big dip in his free throw rate. And then versus the Pelicans, you saw that he is still able to generate a lot of those. And a lot of it is just like, there are different ways of generating fouls, okay? And one's not better than the other. it will, one is, I think, looks more ethical in the way that the kids talk than the other, but they're really just the same. I will say that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, in my opinion, is much closer to Dwayne Wade. Shai initiates contact. He is so fast and so athletic. He initiates contact with you, gets into your shoulder, forces you to have to put contact on him, and is able to then make shot attempts which draw fouls. Luka Doncic is a grifter. Like, he is a guy that, like, flails through stuff and exaggerates body movement and falls down a lot in order to generate those calls. They are both grifting in different ways, but the mechanisms are very much different. Luka is all, by the way, about strength. Shai is very much about quickness and tempo speed, where he goes very fast, very slow. Like, his stop hesitation stuff is supremely good. A lot of this is going to be Dallas. I am concerned with their ability to guard effectively in screen situations that don't involve their centers. Because I think if the Mavericks were just facing a 1-5 combo, like, oh, I don't know, like, what's a good 1-5 combo? Like, I don't know, James Harden and like Ivica Zubac. That's like a very favorable combination for them with their personnel. But when you're putting Kyrie Irving in guard screens, when you're putting Luka Doncic in guard screens, that's when things, I think, get more difficult. And that's where I think that you're going to be able to generate more fouls. Because if you're not involving the better defenders, like, that's a lot of this, right? Is like, Dallas doesn't foul with its very good defenders. But its worst defenders are probably going to pick up some of those, especially depending on who's matched up on the assignment. And they have so much speed and athleticism. It's really tough. Their ability to play 5 out really matters here too, in terms of generating those free throws to offset it. Now, on the other side, like, yeah, like, Luka's going to shoot it, like, they're going to shoot 1 million free throws. The Mavericks, surprisingly, though, this year are not like a high free throw rate team. They were in those matchups you mentioned. And that's a good point. But those were also largely before we saw the foul rate changes, right? We have the one that occurred after, which the Mavericks won. Like, that's like the archetype model if you're a Mavericks fan. It's like, every game will just be like that. And I'm kind of like, I was there. Like, I was watching that night. The Thunder were in like a 4-5, 5-7, looked like hell. That was like the worst part of their season. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe that's just like Dallas is going to roll. I should have said this when we started this. The Mavericks can absolutely win this series, right? Like, you agree with me on this.
Agreed.
If we didn't think so, we would be playing Thunder minus 2.5, because if you think that they're absolutely winning, then the further tail ends of this have more value. But like, we're not. We're just like, yeah, no, I think it's like more than a coin flip towards OKC. Like, that's basically where we're at here.
Yeah, well, and I think even too, if you and I were pricing this the way that we think it should be priced, with Oklahoma City as a clearer favorite, if we were the book, I think we would then come on our podcast and maybe be betting the Mavericks, because I think we would like the Mavericks with like the plus 150 or something, or the plus 1.5. It's just where the number is at, it's not being priced that way, so we have to react accordingly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The matchups are really interesting. I've been thinking about J-Dub a lot and about the way that he plays. You know, he's a lot of big 3-pointers or rim protection, or attacking at the rim. And the Mavericks really have, like, and I will also say this, the Maxi Kleber injury is like a fascinating wrinkle in this series, because a lot of coaches, let's start here. I don't think that he is as good as I thought he was 2 years ago, but you're a big Willie Green guy. Yes, still?
Why are we on Willie Green? Oh,
trust me. Go with me.
I like Willie Green because I like the really big picture, high level stuff in the setup for the season. Yes.
Okay. There are a lot of coaches that, when they faced OKC, did not go big. They went small, because there are things, and this is something that I'm not, like, I don't, as much work as I do, I cannot tell you why. There are things that they do that put the fear of God in these coaches to be like, we got to match them up small. We got to have speed and athleticism. Like, we just can't. And I think a lot of it is just the outright speed of, like, we can't have our big guys in there getting beat down the floor every time. The good news with the Mavericks is that they don't have lumbering bigs. They have rim runners. It's Gafford and Lively who's 20, and Gafford who's like not that much bigger than Chet. So it's just like run to end, run to end, run to end. So they can do this and be okay a little bit. But still, there's going to be like a real problem with that. Kid doesn't have that club in his bag anymore. Like, I need to really stress this. Kleba's why they beat the Clippers. Him going to small ball in the first 3 games was what got them the 2-1 lead by spacing them out with Kleba at the small ball 5. When Lou went back and went big, then Kid did a very smart thing and went even bigger. He was like, oh, okay. So you're going to play big ball here. And you have Russ on the court, because you have to have Russ on the court, because you have Russ, and if you don't, there's problems. All right. So I'm going to play Kleba next to my centers. So we're going to dominate inside. We're going to pack the paint. We're going to take away all the rim stuff. No easy stuff for you. And I can space you out still with a stretch 4. And that combo was killer. And the Clippers had nothing for it. I think they probably had some stuff for it, but Ty Lue couldn't do that. And that's another question about Ty Lue for another time. But I do think that like that's one thing that might, it's interesting because it's like, okay, Kid can't go to that now. But it also means that Kid can't get trapped in the cycle that so many teams do, which is like, oh, I got to put Kleba in and we got to try and out small ball 5 them. Don't do that. Don't try and out small ball 5 the Thunder. That's not a good idea. Chet Holmgren can shoot. Like, you don't want to do this. Okay? So they can play big and they can stay relatively big with PJ Washington at 4 and one of the centers, and they can hit all those rebound advantages that you mentioned and kind of do that. So that's like one of the interesting kind of wrinkles here is that I don't know if Kleba's absence, I genuinely don't know. I don't know if Kleba's absence is a positive because it means that they won't get suckered into playing Thunderball, or a negative because you don't have the ability to be like, we have size and shooting, which is what you need versus the Thunder. And I think that dynamic's really interesting in this series.
Yeah, I am glad you came back to whether it's an advantage or disadvantage, because that's what I was wondering as I was listening to you. And we don't necessarily know. I would say this, not from an X's and O's standpoint, I'll leave that to you. But I do worry that Maxey being out, and it looks like for now, Tim Hardaway Jr. probably being out to start the series at least.
Yeah.
The Mavs aren't deep. The Mavs don't have a lot of bench options here. So I don't know about the X's and O's of it, but like THJ is really the only bench scorer that they have reliably, and Maxey is the only guy that can do the stuff you just talked about. The Thunder got a lot of dudes, man. The Thunder have a lot of young, athletic dudes that can come off the bench. They have a lot of options and answers. I think that the bench advantage could really go OKC's way just by strength in numbers, just by Dallas really only having like 8-9 guys that they feel like they can play with any regularity, and now 2 of them are out right now. So to me, that's where I know that Maxey being out is going to matter, just because the depth there is an issue. And I think related to that too, I want to know your thoughts on this. A real part of my cap on this series is I don't think Luka Doncic is quite right now. I think that knee sprain is genuinely bothering him. I had an article up reacting to round 1 yesterday. I did my playoff MVP ladder because we all need that after 1 round, right? Luka Doncic nearly averaged a 30-point triple-double in the first round in a 6-game win. I did not put him in my top 10 on the MVP ladder. I have Kyrie Irving on my top 10. I do not have Luka Doncic. I thought Kyrie was better. He was way, way more efficient. Luka's efficiency and a lot of his metrics were not great by his standards in the first round. I think the knee is bothering him. And if it is, all the more reason that the depth issue could become a bigger and bigger issue too. Do you think that I am reading into the knee thing? Do you think it is a real issue here for him and for the Mavericks?
Yeah, I think it is. And this is what's always tough in the playoffs, man, is like, we have to judge players if they play. You know, otherwise we're just like giving we don't get to make any assertions about anything. We can just be like, well, he wasn't 100%. Nobody's healthy. Nope, yeah. Nobody's healthy. Everybody hurts. Everybody's hurt. But if you're going to play, you get judged for it. I think the biggest thing is that for whatever reason, the injuries that he's dealing with, and he was sick last round too, his 3-pointer regressing back at the speed of light is a problem.
And it's
because
not unusual either. We've seen this from him in past seasons. Like, he can just go ice cold for a month or two.
yeah, and like I'll just admit this, like I just hate his shot selection on those threes. I just am always like, really? Like that, like you can get such good offense. And then he hits one and everybody's like, "Oh my god, Luka!" And I'm just like, "But like you can generate good offense." But then again, like I'm the Steph hater that was also like, "Why are you shooting that?" Like, it went in. So I guess
let's not call their 3-point selections the
Oh.
same. One of them is 45% on them.
I mean, but that's like an interesting question, right? Is like should you should you only take the shots that the numbers say that
Sure.
you should? Which like you're gonna say yes, and I'll just tell you like the NBA players do not feel that way, which is really funny to me because I lean towards you. I'm like, but you don't hit them.
Well, so relative to the Luka question, I know I don't get to coach the teams, unfortunately. I'd really like to do that someday. If I were coaching the Thunder, based on what I'm seeing right now, and now this seems outlandish to me. Look, I have been the Luka is a playoff god guy for years now. I think his numbers and production has been incredible. Based on the Luka we are seeing right now, if I were coaching the Thunder, I would put my top biggest defensive effort on Kyrie Irving. And I would put my biggest defenders and my most attention to take him away. I trust Chet at the rim. I already got the rim covered. I'm going to take Kyrie away, and I'm going to say, go ahead, Luka. We're the better team. If you beat us 1-on-5, we'll tip our hat. You can't do it 4 times. Is that crazy, or is that a viable thing that could happen here where you put Dort, you put J-Dub, you put the attention on Kyrie and say, Luka, shoot your heart out, buddy. You're not going to beat us.
I think one of the problems is like I don't think Dort matches up nearly as well versus Kyrie as he does versus Luka. So it's like,
true.
Do you go with the assignment that's going to get you that's more important for the game plan, or do you go with the assignment that's going to go more towards that is a better matchup, or do you the more important one? Like this is like a really tough one because J-Dub defended Irving the most this season, and Kyrie was 5 of 9, and they had a stellar offensive rating in those minutes. Kyrie was also 6 of 11 versus Luka Doncic for 55%. Like,
yeah, Kyrie's pretty good, it turns out.
Yeah, Kyrie's pretty good. Don't know that you know this. How about 3 for 3 versus Case and Wallace? Shai defended him for a whopping 12 possessions over 2 minutes, and he was 0 of 1. I kind of the key there is you don't want to wear Shai out, so you get in this tough scenario of do you put Shai on Derek Jones Jr.? Do you have him defend Luka? Do you have him defend Kyrie? Like, how do you kind of go about this? I would keep Dort on Luka because if Luka is the best player in the series, you can win if you're OKC, but it gets even tighter than the -120.
Yeah.
Right? Like it gets -105 if Luka's the best player in the series, and he might very well be. Like I actually think Luka's.
We for years, you and I have called Luka James Harden, basically, right? We've said like, look, you're the same thing. When did we all collectively, the basketball watching world, discover Lou Dort? It was in the playoffs. It was against James Harden, and it was when Lou Dort just totally locked down James Harden for a playoff series and like made him look silly because of the physical defending. Like, I've not been the Lou Dort guy. I am not ever going to be the Lou Dort guy, specifically because I value team defense and positioning and all that kind of stuff. In a matchup where I'm playing one-on-one dribble, shoot ball with Luka Doncic or James Harden, now I need that rugged physical one-on-one defender, and oh man, that is Lou Dort. So I think you're right. It's maybe not about putting my best defender on as much as just putting the best matchups on, and maybe that just kind of takes care of itself that way.
By the way, Luka was 8 of 14 for a 57% from the field and 4 of 8 from 3 versus Lou Dort this season.
Yeah, well, he's good too, it turns out.
He's good. But then like here's where the matchup data is funny because it's admittedly wonky. It's got some problems with the tracking, but like Luka is only 3 of 8 versus Case and Wallace. Sure, Case and Wallace, Luka stopper. Maybe that's the answer here. I'll say this. I lean a little bit towards overs in the series.
Me too.
The Mavs want to play a little bit faster than they have in recent years. They're not like Luka will dribble the air out of the ball, but he also will make reads and trust Kyrie and will play a little bit more off ball. Pace is going to be a big deal, right? The points off of turnovers, I think, is like a really interesting contingent here because let's take Wolves Nuggets game 1. I need to look this up about where the Nuggets were this season.
While you're looking that up, just to agree with your overs point, I had that point as well. Both teams were top 10 in pace, but all 3 games they played, throwing out that game 82, were pace over 100. Here's the point totals from those games: 245, 257, 245 again. Average just under 250 points a game. So if you've been getting real sick of watching Game 7 Cavs Magic, have I got the series for you, my friend? We're going to get some points in this one. I think you definitely want overs here.
So to that point, so the Nuggets were 10th in turnover percentage this season, lowest. They actually, that was like a real hallmark of why they've gotten so much more consistent, is they don't have as many games where they futz around and then throw, have these huge turnover gaps they got to compensate for, because they're a much more well-oiled machine. Well, what happened in game 1 versus the Wolves? 28-18 fast points off of turnovers margin for the Wolves. Like, yeah. It turns out that like good defenses can turn over offenses that don't turn the ball over. That doesn't mean that that's going to happen. It's like, oh, hey, like we talked about, like, well, if Luka's the best player in the series, then we go down to like 105. If the Thunder are successful in disrupting and turning over the Dallas Mavericks, this like skyrockets up to like minus 150 on the Thunder. Is like if they're able to offset the scoring firepower of Kyrie and Luka with like, yeah, but we're getting transition fast break dunks off of your turnovers, that really evens that stuff out. These kind of equations, I think, are a really important part of it. I think a lot of what the Mavericks did versus the Clippers also was they got to the rim really well, and that's like, this is going to be a big Chet Holmgren series for a guy that's a rookie. He's going to have to disrupt lobs, and that's tough. The good news is, and this is one of the things that why it's been crazy, because everyone kind of looks at the way that Anthony Davis beasted the Lakers, and they're also, by the way, a very good example of when I talked about so many coaches went small versus the Thunder, the Lakers didn't. You know why? They don't have that option. Like, they don't have, they LeBron said this on Mind the Game, which is like, this is how we play. This is all we can do. Is like, we get downhill, we attack the rim, we draw fouls. That's what we do. So maybe that's similar to where the Mavericks are at in this series. The Thunder, though, there is kind of this idea of like, oh, well, the Thunder are so small and they're going to get beasted inside. And I'm kind of like, I don't know, guys, because like the Thunder were also an elite defensive team this year. This has been the problem, is they're so young. We expect all of this one type of idea of what OKC is for a young, athletic, no center, no big size team. And their performance is not that, where they're just like, you don't look at their numbers or even watch them in the games and are like, oh man, they just are getting killed on the interior. Like, that's not really what happens. They were this is hilarious. They were the number 1 team, Brandon, in opponent field goal percentage at the rim.
Yeah. So
that's nuts.
So that's, let me use that to springboard into the variance thing we've talked about, because that's what I've noted, is that Dallas is built on, like, the whole point of the James Harden, Luka Doncic offense is to not take too many twos, not a lot of them. I want to shoot threes, but when we take our twos, they're going in. Like, they're so efficient. They're near the top of the league efficiency wise. So is OKC defensively. So I think that kind of negates that. And that's where the whole thing leans back toward variance for me, because Dallas wants to take a ton of threes. They're top 3 in 3-point attempts. Oklahoma City wants you to take a ton of threes. They were top 5 in most 3-pointers allowed. Neither team is really like amazing percentage-wise. 3-point percentage is unpredictable. We know that. So we're going to get a ton of Dallas threes. On the other side of the ball, Oklahoma City has been very, very efficient scoring. They have a high EFG all season. They're 3rd on EFG. They're number 1 in 3-point percentage. Jim Turvey and I have talked a lot about this, of like, okay, now go through the guys. Are we really expecting, really, Josh Giddey's going to keep hitting threes? Oh, really? Lou Dort's going to hit threes in the playoffs? Guess what? Apparently, yes. Apparently, they're making 50% of their threes, and it just doesn't matter anymore. So will they keep hitting them? And we talked about Dallas, their big defensive leap. From February 5th forward, Dallas went from 26th in defensive EFG to 3rd after that. That doesn't pass the smell test to me. And look, I've watched a bunch of them now. I watched the whole series against the Clippers. they're defending. Do I think that they're defending like the number 3 defensive EFG team? I don't see it. I don't know what my eyes are missing or what's happening in the numbers. And I do think there's a little bit of this. Most of that stretch, they had a stretch winning 16 out of 18 games. One win came against the team above the play-in, and it was that Kyrie shot against the Nuggets. Now we have 6 more games against the Clippers. They're a good offense, right? Are they? I don't know. Kawhi didn't play. Russell Westbrook is dead on arrival. James Harden took off the last 2 games. Like, am I sure I should be impressed by Dallas not letting the Clippers score because they just like showed up for shoot around and bricked a few shots for a couple of games and headed to Cancun? I don't feel that impressed by it. I wasn't impressed watching it. Sorry to Dallas fans. Like, I don't know what to do with this because I don't really think OKC's guys should be the best 3-point team in the league and make all their shots, but I don't really think Dallas's defense should be as amazing as they've looked either. So I don't really know which one it's going to be, and that's where I get left with not even necessarily, well, this is so even, but I don't know. I don't know if Dallas makes their bajillion threes or not. I don't know if OKC's shooting is real or if Dallas's EFG is real. So to me, like, those are, look, we talk about the 4 factors thing. EFG is the heaviest measure of all of them. It matters if you make your shots or not. And that's where you said you led with shot variance on the series. I think that's where we come back to and why I kind of feel uncertain on things so much, because so much of the EFG question is up in the air. To pivot, as we were recording this a few hours ago, we awoke to a tweet announcing a contract extension for our man, Jason Kidd. Matt Moore, tell me what you think about the coaching matchup in this series.
Jason Kidd was really impressive in the first round. I thought he was really good. This is I think that Clipper series is the best I've seen Jason Kidd coach a playoff series. You know, the Jazz series was a lot of he pulled the right levers against a Jazz team that you could pull levers against, and Jalen Brunson was great. The Sun series was a lot of like the Suns were imploding into nothingness. That was the start of that very long implosion. And so this one was like he genuinely got him, right? He got hit with no Kawhi in game 1, which you say like, well, that's a fortunate thing. It wasn't, because the Mavericks or the Clippers then played more pick and roll. So the Mavericks had an entire game plan that was built on a team that didn't show up for that game 1. And then instead of getting stuck with it, Kidd adapted and changed everything up in game 2, even the series, made even more adjustments, leaned into that in game 3, got the 2-1 lead. And then in game 5, found the 2 big combo and beat the snot out of them. Like he got the adjustments. He was ahead of them. He timed them right. He didn't pull them too early. He played the right guys. He trusted Derrick Jones Jr., which I thought after the first game, I was like, well, Derrick Jones Jr. is going to be not a guy in the series. And instead he trusted him, and he let Derrick Jones Jr. make plays, which is like, you could get away with that versus the Clippers. He moved PJ Washington around really well. Like, there's just like a lot of things that I think Kidd did really well in that series. And we don't have like a big sample size here on Dags, where it was odd to me the way that the Pelicans series was talked about in Basketball Intelligentsia. But when I take a step back, I'm like, Pels without Zion, they should win that series easily. They won that series easily. And that's like just kind of what it is. I don't think Willie Green coached a good series. I continue to be like, I really like to see Willie Green do some stuff. I don't think he coached a good series. I think Dags was fine. This is like the test drive here is like, there's a lot of reason to believe that Mark Daigneault might be an elite coach. Like, there's a lot of reasons to think that. He's inventive. He adapts to personnel. He's extremely calm in the moment. He doesn't get rattled and frazzled. He doesn't get like out of sync. He has a very just like, he is the most Thunder coach that you could find. It's why I think Sam Presti was so quick to be like, nope, that's the guy. Is because Dags has all of the things that the Thunder want their coaches to be. That said, if Kidd finds something, whether it's a 3-guard lineup, a big lineup with PJ Washington, 2 bigs, whether it's some pick and roll coverage on Shai, whatever it is. Do I know Dags is going to make that adjustment? I don't. I don't know if Dags has the ability to make those adjustments because he's got a roster that's still so young. He can't teach them stuff then. Like that's like an off-season thing. It's like, okay, now you know what you got to work on because this is your counter. They're so new that I don't have like a really good feel for it. I don't give Kid an edge because Kid's career performance is like a D. And if you're like, but yeah, Matt, he's like made the okay, they missed the playoffs last year with Luka Doncic, right? I don't think that Jason Kidd is a great coach. I think he's coaching great right now. And so again, it's like, yeah, okay, shot variance. Here's another one. If Jason Kidd just outcoaches Mark Dagnall, this switches to Mavs minus 105, minus 110. I just don't know. I don't know right now. And I don't want to give Dags credit before he does the thing. He's got to do it in the series for me to be like, okay, I thought he could do this and he did it. That's kind of my thoughts on the coaching.
So I do want to give him credit. I am going to give him credit. I think Dagnall is a top 10 NBA coach, and I think Jason Kidd is a bottom 10 NBA coach. And I also think that number 10 is too high in both of those cases in all likelihood. I thought Dagnall was actually great in the first round. Some of the substitution patterns and the way that he adjusted those in game, I thought was really important. He closed out the one game that mattered. Look, it was a sweep, but game one was close. And if you lose game one at home as the 1 seed to the 8 seed, I don't know if you just win the next 4. It's easy to say they would have because they won the next 3 easily anyways, but that changes the tenor of things. Part of why they won is because he made the right moves late and helped Shai get the right shot late to get the win. I thought Dagnall did what he needed to. To put it differently, if Joe Mazzulla was coaching that Thunder team in the first round, would they have swept the Pelicans?
No.
I don't know. I don't think so. Like, I can give credit for sweeping. I can give credit for winning 3 games very easily, even if I can't give you credit for making the right adjustments in clutch time. I don't really think a lot of that's coaching anyways. That's just on the players at that point. But the things that I could see he's done, and the things that we've seen for really a few years now, even before the Thunder like broke onto the scene per se, he's done in the regular season. I know it's not good the playoffs. You're right. I give Kidd credit. I thought he coached a very good series last round. Coaching expertise is not my top area of expertise, but I think that this is a pretty wide margin in OKC's favor. And that, like, to me, as I get to choosing OKC in a series that I think is pretty close, the better team with the better coach and the better depth, the coaching is a big part of that. And so you're right. If I'm wrong about that, that's another area where I would maybe have to reevaluate. But I feel personally pretty confident that Dagnall over Kidd is a real advantage in my corner.
I want to talk about some of the shot stuff to go back to that point real quickly. Dallas was great after the All-Star break in terms of the shots that they allowed. Not just an effective field goal percentage, but their expected mark was good too. The playoffs were a different matter, though. The Mavericks have the 11th ranked location at EFG on cleaning the glass, which means like how good were your shots based off of the average player shooting from there. They gave up pretty high percentage looks and they converted them at a very, very, very low rate. And you go like, well, that was them leaving Russell Westbrook open. Not wrong, but also like Terrence Mann couldn't do anything. Paul George settling for jumpers. Like the Clippers got to a point where they didn't want to challenge the Mavericks defense, where the Mavericks defense were like, we're giving you just this. And you're just going to have to take stilted, out of rhythm jumpers. And the Clippers were like, bet. Oh, we lost. Oh, okay. So maybe, okay, we should act like a basketball.
Isn't your number saying the opposite, though? That's why I'm surprised. Isn't your number suggesting that the Clippers actually got pretty good looks comparatively?
So a lot of it, I think, is based off of, I'll have to kind of dig into some of what this looks like. They gave up a pretty high percentage of 3-point attempts, and the Clippers couldn't shoot anything. Couldn't hit anything. Like they are the 15th ranked team in the playoffs in frequency allowed and accuracy from the corners, or from above the break rather. They gave up a ton of those looks, and they gave up a ton of corner threes as well. So like they gave up a lot of those types of attempts, but at the rim they gave up a pretty decent amount too, which kind of makes you wonder. But they just defended those shots really well, right? It's like they gave up a lot of shots there, but they're super contested with Gafford and Lively and Kleba. And so you can kind of make the argument there that like, well, they did a good job of actually contesting those shots and forcing misses. So some of this gets into the weeds, but what I will say is all of the expected marks lean towards OKC, both regular season and playoffs. Like OKC is second in EFG in the playoffs. That makes sense. They hit a ton of threes versus the Pelicans. They're ninth in location in the playoffs, which is not great, but it's also not like, it's not terrible. Dallas, on the other hand, they shot the 12th best in terms of what you should expect to shoot in the first round, and actually shot the 6th best. Now, a lot of that's just like Luka and Kyrie make tough shots. That's totally fair.
Yeah.
The point I'm trying to get to here is, if the Mavericks try the approach of, we're going to pack down the paint and contest everything, we can't really perimeter contain all that well, and we're going to give up a bunch of threes, OKC's can eat them alive, but maybe OKC just misses. Maybe the regression just hits them here. That's where this is really killer, is like, we can cap this exactly and be completely right on this. And OKC, if they just do not hit those threes that the Mavericks are going to give them, then we lose. And that's not the same for every series. That's not the same. Like with the Wolves and Nuggets series, it's about specific players hitting specific shots. Like it's a lot more layered in context. This one really is like, do you think OKC will continue to shoot well? If you do, you should be with us. If you're like, I don't think that they will continue to shoot well, you should probably be with Dallas. I even kind of like partially think this might be more about OKC shooting than Dallas shooting, because I feel like Kyrie and Luka are going to do, like, Luka's either going to be healthy or he's not. Kyrie's either going to score or he's not. And then you got guys like PJ Washington, who shot surprisingly well in round one, he's not a good shooter. Like he's a 32% career shooter, shooting 28%, but in that game 5 versus the Clippers, he was lights out. So like, these are the kind of like pressure marks that can just change things, and that's why this is such a variance built series. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I was just going to say on the rim protection part of that too, it's easy to focus on the threes, but Dallas's rim protection is another spot where I don't know that I trust the numbers. The numbers say it's very, very good now, and that's what the numbers said from the Clippers series. The numbers also didn't know that Russell Westbrook and Terrence Mann were the ones shooting those shots, and they're not good at those at this stage of their career. So I think in this series, I want to know who's shooting at the rim. Is it Shai? I feel pretty good about that. I feel like Shai can go ahead and finish at the rim. He'll do all right. But is it Josh Giddey? Is it Lou Dort? Like I call Lou Dort discount Dylan. Dylan Brooks, my man, loves to just like drive the basket and get shots up. And part of why I compared the two of them is because their 2-point percentage is abysmal most of the time. I don't want Lou Dort driving the ball into the Dallas defense and taking some shots near the rim. Like I don't want that. I want Shai doing stuff, or else I want some threes. So I think watching the shot selection and knowing how well coached the team is and how optimized the offense is, that they are taking the right types of shots from the right types of guys, I think gives me more confidence there. But Gafford and Lively are really good, and they're basically going to get 48 minutes out of those guys, because if one gets in foul trouble, just put the other one right back in. And even too, we talked about Chet earlier. You're not getting 48 minutes of Chet. So whether it's Jalen Williams, the other one, or whatever other bench guys come in, it's a big drop off from Chet Holmgren on that end versus Dallas kind of getting their 48 minutes of Gafford or Lively. So yeah, it's shots at the rim. It's also the shots on the threes that are tough to predict. And I find myself capping this series very largely the way I capped the Mavericks last series. And in that one, I called it the best series of the round and thought it was going to be a great watch and great fun throughout. And the last part, I strongly disagree with myself on. We got a lot of very tough to watch games. And when you get a barrage of threes, that also means sometimes you might get like, oh man, Paul George just made 6 threes in a row and a half, and a team is ahead by 30. I will note here, the Thunder are a very good second half team. The Mavs are a very streaky team because of how much they're going to keep shooting threes. If you like the Thunder, there probably are going to be spots to live bet OKC. If you are a live better, that because of the variance here and the shot making, that can lead either team to also go cold, and suddenly that big lead disappear very quickly when suddenly Kyrie hits 4 threes in a row or the Thunder threes start falling. So I don't do a lot of live betting, but if you are looking for a spot, I think that this would be a chance to get some real edges here. And just because we think the series is close, just because we think the teams are close, doesn't mean the games will be close. It might mean this team took 45 threes and shot 54% on them tonight, and whoops, that was a bad game. They won by 28 points or something. I think that is really in play too. So it all comes back to me being least confident of what's going to happen in this series, even to the point I literally am picking OKC in 6 or 7. I don't think I'd be completely baffled by like the Mavs won the series in 5. I don't think I'd be like, wow, totally got that one wrong necessarily. Maybe I did, but I think that that's like in a totally normal range of outcomes based on the high amount of variance stuff that's in play here. So your best bet is just Thunder outright in the series. Like you said, neither one of us usually just settles for the outright pick. We like to get creative. I feel like you've mostly made your case, but why Thunder outright?
It's mostly that like I'm willing to be wrong. You know, I think Knicks Pacers is one that I'm not willing to be wrong on. We did that preview and I didn't have a best bet because I was just like, I'm not willing to be wrong on the Knicks because they're just too fucking annoying to me. I'm just like, all right, fine. I think the Pacers might be better or be able to hang in this series, but everyone kind of disagrees. So I will bend here. The Thunder, I'm just kind of like, I thought to myself this a lot during the season, which is we have gone back to the well collectively and they're just too young. You know, these young teams just can't do it. You're too young. The problem with that analysis is that we've never seen a young team this good.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that they're going to win the title, but it does mean that in series like this, we're probably not giving them the respect that they deserve. And on some level, I just kind of need to be like, okay, are they badly coached? No, they're really well coached. All right. Is their number one guy a playoff disappearer? No, he struggled in game 1, settled down, hit 2 clutch shots to finish off game 1, and then eradicated them in the following 3 games. Oh, okay. Does he not have enough support? No, he's got Jalen Williams that can actually create off the bench and is good. Like, I'm higher on Giddey and Dort than you are. I think they're viable NBA players. I think especially look, outside of the context of Josh Giddey's prior summer activities, Josh Giddey really turned his season around and started playing with a lot more force and comfort, and he turned a corner in terms of how he was playing. He is not playing uncertain like he did the first half of the year. Like, that's a lot of where I get to, not just like, yes, the shot's going in, but so much of it is just like, I see a Josh Giddey that's actually like knows what he wants to do when he gets the ball. And he did not know what to do. He was good his rookie season and backslid when he had to take less of a role because of the evolution of Jalen Williams. And he is finding ways to be more of a third playmaker, third weapon, third guy on the outside, rather than trying to be more like where he's like, it wasn't that he was trying to force it. It was the opposite, where he was like, he didn't want to mess it up and get in the way. And now he's much more involved with, I'm comfortable filling in the gaps the way that I need to here. Dort, I think, is phenomenal. I think he's worked on his game. He's a veteran at this point. He's reliable. Like, I think Dylan is discount Dort. That's how I think of it. I really do. I think Dylan is discount Dort. I would rather have Dort about 7 days a week.
Yeah,
I would rather have Dort.
That's fair. I would.
And so, in particular, because Dort doesn't do the Dylan things of like, it's Dylan time.
Yeah. And
like, Dort's not like,
too.
Yeah. And so there's just like a lot more confidence there. Do I think that the Dallas defense is fake? I don't. Do I think that OKC can beat it? I do. Do I think the Dallas offense is dangerous? Absolutely. Do I think OKC's defense is phenomenal in terms of its athleticism, length, and how it's coached? Yes, I do. So I'm just kind of come on to this and I'm like, look, if Dallas continues to be the team that nobody can score at the rim on, like you mentioned the rim stuff, in the first round, Brandon, the Clippers shot 46.4% EF, or just field goal percentage, at the rim. The next best is the New York Knicks allowing 53%. It's a 7 percentage point drop across the 50% line for at rim. That's That is preposterous. And good on Gafford and Lively and Kleba for making all those contests, and PJ Washington. I like the athleticism on OKC a lot, so I'm willing to lay the minus 120.
Yeah, I mean, I think I basically cap it pretty similarly. I think OKC is the better team at the end of the day. I think they have a big coaching advantage here, more so than you are putting it until we see it more. I think they have a depth advantage. I don't totally trust Luka Doncic right now. I typically would want to back him. I'd want the best player in a series. I don't think the current version of Luka is the best player in the series. I think Shai was pretty close to him in the regular season anyway. I think, by the way, Shai and the Thunder have played 4 games in the last 21 days. So this is a young team that I was a little concerned coming into the playoffs that some of the young guys' metrics were really dropping off toward the end of the season. Great way to fix that is to not have to play games for 3 weeks and get a little bit of rest coming in where, the Mavs play an extra couple of games. And frankly, their superstar doesn't look 100% right now or close to it. So I think Dallas has the matchup stuff that closed the gap a little bit. With Luka, I'm always going to give credit for a long series until proven otherwise. We are now at 6 Doncic playoff series. In 5 of the 6, we've gotten to at least game 6. If you go by the series spread, Luka Doncic is 5-1 against the series spread for his career. So I'm going to respect Luka to get some games out of this, and Kyrie. I'm gonna respect them to get there. I mentioned at the top, this is where I came on Clippers Mavs also, and I should have just done it. I would have won my bet instead of losing. I wanted over 5.5 games. I just wanted a long series. That's the only thing I felt really good about. We got it. I didn't play it because the juice was so high. Same thing again here. It's minus 180. I don't like playing minus 180s. So I'm back to, okay, if it's a long series, who do I like to win the long series? So that's my bet. OKC in 6 plus 650. OKC in 7 plus 440. I definitely want both. I think that they could win on the road and close out, and they're good enough to do that. It's plus 213 combined, and it's a bet on the Thunder winning a long series. So to throw it back to you on this, and then I actually prefer to bet series props on this one. So I have a couple I want to get to before we close out here. My bet is Thunder in 6 or 7 plus 213. Your bet is Thunder in any amount of games at effectively even odds, minus 120 or 115, wherever you get it. Which direction am I more likely to lose my bet? The Thunder win, but in less than 6 games, or the Mavs win the series? And should I be trying to talk you into my version of your bet and not the whole Thunder minus 120?
Yeah, I think you're more likely to lose with the Mavericks win. And so I like I was thinking about that. I was like, should I just follow Brandon here and do the 6 and 7? I think one of the things though is I'm not as good about nailing these kind of details, and so I also want to leave the variance up here. Yeah. Where what if there's this gives me an out of, hey, it's game 4, Thunder up 2-0 through 2-1, Mavs win game 3 in a big spot, they crush them. It's game 4. It's a coin flip. Weird officiating. Thunder win.
Yeah.
And then it's
now
like,
you're
okay,
up 3-1. Now you're going home to close out. And my bet's in real big trouble. And I can't even hedge because it's the favorite now.
Yeah. And so that leaves a possibility of it. Now, do I think that that's likely? No. Like I lean towards 6 and 7 too. Yeah. I think that for me, I'm comfortable laying the minus 120. Based off of the implied value here when it's about 55%, and I think it needs to be closer to 60. I think it should be 60-40 Thunder. And that can change rapidly. Like, it wouldn't shock me if the Mavs took game 1. I will say that I got great closing line value. Woohoo! Gonna eat that closing line value. Num 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 num. Bet this immediately when I opened at minus 2.5 on Thunder, and I was like, the Sharps are gonna kill this on OKC, and they did.
The game 1, you're saying?
Game 1, yeah. So I laid the 2.5 in game 1. I'm not on the best bets pod for today. So
I think to your point too, and the reason why I'm going to not try to talk you into my version of the bet, I'll stick with my in 6 or 7. But a part of my cap is that I don't think Luka Doncic is right, and if I'm correct about that, might I be too correct and cost myself my own bet because Luka is injured enough or bad enough that the Thunder take care of business a little faster than expected? I think that's possible. That I'm going to use to springboard into the props that I want to play because Luka Doncic, the usage god, is obviously the favorite in every stat category here. I love my series leaders. He is the favorite in points. He's the favorite in rebounds. He's the favorite in assists. He's the favorite in threes. I want to play 2 of them. I love playing the rebounding prop in the series because, again, I am capping this based on I think Luka is not the 100% Luka right now. And if he's not, rebounding is a really obvious place for that to show up because rebounding is as much about energy and putting some effort into it as anything else. In the last series, and this is a tiny sample, I know, Luka only had 7 rebounds each of the last 2 games against the Clippers. That's, to me, when I thought that the knee was bothering him the most. And if you dig deeper into it from NBA stats, he only had 10 potential rebounds in those 2 games. Each of the games 10 average. He averaged 16.3 the first 4 games. That's not nothing. That's a real drop-off in potential rebounds. And guess who made up the ground when those disappeared from Luka? It was Daniel Gafford and it was Derek Lively. Those are the 2 guys I want here because if Luka's rebounds are down a little bit, this is a winnable category. Chet Holmgren will be in the mix, but I like the centers for Dallas. Here's what happened when these teams played in the regular season. Here's the stats for whoever was the starting center from the 3 games, averaged 19 points, 13.3 rebounds. They had 16 offensive rebounds, and that's not even really in big minutes because the other guy is playing too. So that's the problem here is I might be totally right about my cap that Dallas's centers gobble up all the rebounds, but they just cannibalize each other and lose the bet anyway. That's possible here, but here's my bet. I'm splitting the bet. I got Daniel Gafford at 10-1. I get Derek Lively at 33-1. And let me just tell you, you got to shop around on this one. The numbers are all over the market on this. If you only get one, I like Lively at the longer number. But Gafford has 3 games against the Thunder this year. One was with Washington. He played only 23 minutes a game. He averaged 16 and 11 rebounds, even in 23 minutes. Derek Lively, his career best rebounding game, as a rookie, obviously, this year, 16 rebounds in his start that he had against Oklahoma City. So I think either or both these guys are going to feast on the glass. Gafford's got some injury issues too, so that's why I like Lively better because I think he has more a long tail of upside if he ends up getting some more minutes here. I think that they are very live to get the rebounds, and so I love that one. To a lesser degree, just give me Shai on points leader. Shai is plus 400 to be the points leader. I just think that's too far. Luka is not that much better a scorer than Shai. Shai averaged over 30 each of the last 2 seasons in the regular season. I think it should be maybe plus 200, plus 250 range. And that would be if Luka is healthy. That's the price if Luka is healthy, that he should still be the favorite, but not an 80% favorite here. And again, either one of these bets can only be helped if, and look, I want to see healthy dudes play the series, but Luka has a knee issue. If he ends up missing a quarter or a half or a game, that counts. That counts for my bet. I'm playing the stuff in front of us. And if we miss a little time and that opens things up for the other guys, I think that's available too. So to me, rather than actually betting the series outcome, this is my favorite bet. And actually, I love the Gafford Lively angle. So that would be my top actual play on the series right now.
One more for you before we get out of here. That's great stuff. I'll tail on the rebounds. OKC at BetMGM is 9-1 to win the NBA title, plus 350 to win the Western Conference. Right? We both are betting Thunder here. They will have home court versus who comes out of Wolves Nuggets. It's only, I think it has to be a hedge play, right? But there is that part of me that's just kind of like, I don't know, man. What if like OKC just like beats everybody? Like OKC beat everybody this year. What if OKC just beats everybody? Especially considering, I think it's very unlikely. We were talking about this morning with Raheem on a text chain. I think it's very unlikely that Denver's able to get out of the series in 6 now after losing game 1. They'd have to win 4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
And of 5, of the next 5 games. And you don't expect Denver to go out. Now we're recording this on Tuesday or Monday morning. And so like if Denver loses game 2, the Wolves might get like a nice rest time before OKC or Dallas. But I am just kind of like I've held off so long on Thunder futures, and it's a hole in my portfolio, and I'm kind of like, man, maybe I just need to go ahead and do either Thunder or Thunder Celtics and just get in on that. Especially if I think that the OKC wins game 1. I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. Maybe this is the time to go ahead and buy OKC. They're in a series where we don't think that they're being accurately priced. So that's baked into the number of their chances to make it out of this round into the conference finals, where they will have home court against whoever comes out of what we expect to still be a grueling series between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. I do kind of look at that and I go, man, there's probably value there. I just don't know how to bet it.
I'll say this. I agree on there's value there, but I don't know how to bet it. And hi, I'm Brandon, the futures guy. I don't have a lot of times when I come to the table and say, I'm not really too sure how to bet this futures market. I don't know where the angle is. But I looked at it because I don't know, like, as of this moment, because the Timberwolves won game 1, and we are effectively at a coin flip series in Minnesota-Denver, and we are effectively at a coin flip series here, I don't remember a lot of times, Matt, when we have been at a conference semifinals and had 2 coin flip series. Like, the books are telling us, and I think we're effectively agreeing, I have no idea what's happening in the West. I don't know who's winning that bracket. I don't know who's winning that bracket. I don't know who's playing each other. I don't know how the matchups will go, and I have no idea who's coming out of the West. Here's the problem. That presents opportunity. If you feel like you have a read, man, this is a great shot for you, especially because I think there's a good chance either or both of these West series go back and forth a little bit. I think there's a good chance that you might be able to go down a game with one of your teams, whoever you like, and still come back on it and get an even better number at that point. Or maybe even if you're not down, maybe it's 2-2 late in the series. This was the spot a year ago. Denver played Phoenix. It was 2-2. This was the spot that I came out with the hammer on Denver in that home game 5, thinking, okay, I like Denver in this game. If I like them in the game, I like them in the series. If I like them in the series, I like them next round. If you give them else a cookie, Denver wins a championship. So watch for your spot. I think it's there in the West. I don't have a pick. I don't know which of the 4 teams that I want right now. But I'll tell you this. I don't think the East is like that. I think the East is the Celtics and the Knicks, and I think the Celtics beat the Knicks. So I pretty much know what's happening on the other side. And I don't know if I really want to bet the Celtics in the finals. So let me punch the math for you on my old calculator. Whoever I figure out in the West is coming out. Might have to be the team I bet to win the championship. So I might be back in that spot where I'm looking for the spot somewhere in this round to say, okay, am I ready? Who's my team? Who's my pick? I'm not ready. I don't have a bet for that right now. And I don't know if it's the right spot necessarily either. But as a bettor, if you are playing futures, especially like Matt, if you have a portfolio that you're trying to kind of watch and find your spot for, I don't remember a lot of opportunities like the West where things are this evenly priced and wide open. I think it is presenting a clear opportunity for you. If you have a good read, if you have a team that you want to grab, you should play it. I don't have one for you today. I guess, I don't know. I picked Timberwolves and Thunder in short series, and then the Thunder I think have a slight matchup advantage and the home court advantage. So maybe I should be where you're at. Maybe I should be thinking about a Thunder spot here as well. I'll say this. You talked about we don't have a young team. Young teams are never this good. I can think of one young team that was pretty good. It was Oklahoma City, like a decade ago. And they made the finals. And they were favored in the finals, by the way, too. They were favored in that finals against Miami to win against LeBron and all those guys. That's how good the Thunder were. Now, look, do I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams are all going to win an MVP someday? Probably not. I'm going to bet against that scenario. So maybe it's not quite that Thunder here. Thunder fans are pretty much thinking, I've seen a young team before go a long ways. It might win a lot of games. So I don't know who it is. I'm with you. If you like a future spot, you got to find it and play it.
There's a 2011 Thunder team that made the conference finals and lost to Dallas, a longtime competitor, but never kind of got over the hump, with a European star that often took a lot of shots and arrows.
Come on, man. Thunder fans were feeling so good about my last little rant, and now you had to bring that up again.
Here's just to close out, here's a crazy pricing in the West, okay? Nuggets to win the title are plus 450. Wolves to win the title are plus 575. 450, 575.
Okay.
Nuggets to win the West because they're down 0-1 is plus 225. Wolves plus 200. So the Wolves are shorter to win the West than the title because they're pricing it as Denver can beat Boston, Minnesota can't.
Yeah.
That's how this is being priced. If you disagree with that, great opportunity to bet Minnesota. OKC, meanwhile, is 9-1 to win the title, so they think that they have an even less of a chance of beating the Boston Celtics, which that makes sense, and plus 350 to win the Western Conference. Just like a fascinating series of of where the market is. That's gonna do it for Buckets. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. We'll talk to you guys again next time. We will have series preview up on Cavaliers versus Celtics, God help us, as well as best bets for the rest of the week. We'll have that for you throughout the week. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next time. Till then, let's get buckets.